Welcome back to the Ex-Foster Voice, where we represent the voices of those who have lived through the foster system. I'm Serena Vasudeva, ex-foster youth and your host. Today we'll be hearing from Heaven Hampton, who went into foster care when she was 14. Now she's a legal assistant with 3 children living in Nashville. So Heaven, let's start with your living situation before foster care.
Yes, before foster care, I stayed with my grandparents, because I had got custody taken away from my biological parents. So I was adopted by my grandparents. And when my grandparents could no longer take care of me due to a series of bad events, I stayed with my uncle. And after staying with my uncle for about 9 months and he couldn't properly take care of me, I went into the foster system.
Tell me a bit about your 4 siblings.
I have an older brother who never entered foster care. I have an older sister who was in foster care 6 months before we were. Then I have 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister, and they entered care with me, and they stayed with me throughout my whole time in foster care.
When did you enter foster care with your 2 siblings?
I entered foster care 2 weeks before Christmas in December of 2016.
That's one time to enter foster care at Christmas. Oh, gee.
And yeah, it was horrible. It was terrible.
I bet. What age were you and your siblings?
I was 15. My younger sister, she was 12. And then my younger brother, he was 11.
So when you first enter care, you're taken to a DCS office, you're asked some questions, and then work begins on placing you into a home, with a foster parent. What was this time in the DCS office like for you?
It was very scary. I didn't know like what was gonna be of life, but at the same time, it was scary, but it was like a time where I was like very curious, and I knew like in my heart that it would be like a fresh start for me, like from everything that I had been going through. So I was optimistic. Like I was trying to make the best out of my situation then, but it was like very scary because like it's like you're finna go live with some adults and you don't even know them. Like it's some people that you never met in your life. They don't know you. You don't know them. That's always scary, like meeting a stranger. And especially like the way that I was raised. Like I didn't grow up around a lot of people. I like never went like anywhere outside of the house. Only place we really went was like school to home. So it was like very socially, it was like scary too. So it was a lot of like fears coming in from like changing schools, having to start over and like meeting new kids. So it was just very scary, just knowing that like life was finna change a lot.
Yeah, and it can be really intense, not only because you're meeting the stranger, but then you're living with the stranger, and it's like, oh
Right.
boy,
All right. And it's like, especially like when you're that young, like you don't know, like you don't trust anybody. Like I feel like it really damaged my trust with people because it's like I really can't trust you. I really don't know you. And it takes time to build trust. You're not gonna trust somebody you just meet. So it's like you're sleeping with like one eye open. Like that's how I feel like almost most nights of living with a respite or a permanent placement. And I always feel like, like I gotta get my feel for the place before I can even all the way go to sleep. Like it can be very scary for sure. First night is so scary.
they couldn't find you a permanent home at first, so you stayed in something called a respite home. A respite home is temporary care for foster children and can be used when a permanent home can't be found or when a foster parent takes a vacation. Tell me a bit about your respite home with the Ross family.
The Ross family was very welcoming. Like, it was a single family household, but she was very sweet and she was very nice. And I enjoyed being a part of the family. I was sad to go. My siblings didn't even want to go, but they were telling us that it was like not the right permanent placement for us, so we couldn't stay with the Ross family. But I really enjoyed it. But we were only there for like 2 weeks. And it's like really you have to be at a foster home longer than 2 weeks to get the full feel. Like by month 2, y'all are both, very cozy with each other, so you can really see all the things that they're really going to be doing. Because people reserve themselves, even adults. I mean, we just got to be honest here, but she was nice, and I still to this like day, see her sometimes. But she was very sweet.
Was there anything that she did in particular that made you feel comfortable or safe?
Yes, she gave us a tour around the home. She explained to us the rules, and she explained to us of how she does things, how her days go. And she just got really cozy with us. She sat down and really just talked to us and just talked to us about everything. And she was comforting too. Like she wasn't mean. And by then, like I was just telling, I was so sheltered, like younger. So I was like so used to people being one kind of way. Like one type of like discipline treatment, one type of everything. So it was like refreshing to get like a new type of parenting in my life. Like, and she even went out her way to make sure we had the things that we needed. Like when we first got into care, we didn't have a lot of things. So she would go out her way to make sure that we had everything that we needed and make sure that we were comfortable. Even at night, like she asked us how our pillows was, how our bed was, and did we need more pillows? Like she was very sweet.
It sounds like she really did go right out of her way. Wow. So my next question, could you elaborate a bit about the parenting?
I would say like she was a gentle parent. Like if something would bother her or something would go wrong, because it's like you're kids, and you know when you're kids, you even no matter what age you're gonna need correcting. Like this standard. Like so if it was something that she had an issue with, like she would just be so calm addressing it, or like she would calmly, address each situation. Like, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to erratic behavior. I was used to just, yelling and screaming and, you know, physical discipline. I was never used to someone just calmly talking to me. Like it took me off guard. Like, wow, you're so calm, you're so nice and patient. I think that's what she was patient.
So after this 2 week stay with her, because it's a respite, it's not meant to be permanent. You told your DCS worker that you wanted to stay. What happened there?
She told us that she was not the right family for us. And I really think the only reason why she said that is because I'm African American and she was Caucasian. And most of the time in my foster care experience, being with my 3 siblings, they always would try to place us with people that were African American too. I don't know why this is a standard, but this is literally what I was told by my caseworker, that they try to make it, I guess where things are easier. I don't know what their idea behind it is, to be honest, but this is just what I heard. She was just basically saying that she wasn't the right fit for us. We needed to be with a bigger family and of African American descent.
So, do you think that this choice ultimately hurt you?
I do, because the next home that we were in, that they put us in a permanent placement, I mean, yeah, they were African American, but it was a bad experience. I feel like the connection shouldn't go off race. I should feel like what it goes off like family dynamic. Like, how do y'all hit it off? How do y'all communicate with each other? How is the energy? Like, I feel like it shouldn't just be based off that. That is like very, very weird to me. Like, because if you're happy and things are going well, then why interfere if it's going good? Because that's not going to just automatically make you a fit. I just think that's wild.
So, at this point, you get placed with your first permanent family and you enter the care of youth villages, correct?
Yes.
How did your DCS worker inform you of this?
She just told me, she was like, well, it's going to be easier if you guys get placed into youth villages because they're going to be able to see you more and I won't have to see you as much. And they have more services. And that's pretty much all she said. She didn't really go into depth of explaining anything about it.
She didn't really explain what it actually meant. That Youth Villages is a nonprofit organization that has specific training for foster parents, that the homes that Youth Villages creates are supposed to be therapeutic and provide a higher level of care and therapy.
I didn't even know some of the things you just said, and I was in youth villages from almost the beginning of time when I was in custody until I aged out. And I did not know any of that you just said. I didn't know that they're supposed to be therapeutic homes, because it was not given therapeutic. It was not. But I find that cute that that's their mission statement, but it was definitely not giving what they're trying to. They need to, probably incorporate some new things in there. So even with their staff, like they could definitely do better, not just with the foster parents that they have, but the staff training. They probably need a lot more in that area because the staff was not giving what it was supposed to.
Let's talk more about this in general. So, your first permanent home with the Williams, like this is really when you started to get into the meat of foster care. How long did it last?
Probably like a month and a half. It did not last long.
So, you're originally from Nashville, but for this foster home, you moved to Pulaski, Tennessee, about an hour away. How did such a big move affect you?
It was like probably like more like 3 or 4 hours away. But it was almost like in Alabama, like it was like a 30-minute drive to Alabama from there. And it was like a probably like hour and a half drive from Atlanta. So it was very, down there. It was nothing like Nashville. It was a complete culture shock. And I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I've lived here my whole life. So when they took me to Pulaski, I was completely caught off guard. I was like, hold on, y'all don't have a Kroger's? Y'all don't have a mall? Like it was like a shell shock. Like I didn't even know people were out here living like how they're living in those small towns. Like I was completely shocked. I did not know people lived like that. And I honestly, still to this day, do not know how they do it because I would go crazy if I couldn't go to, like Kroger or just all the general places that we have to go in Nashville, and we have downtown, and we have more people to socialize with and different people we can meet. In a small town, you're just meeting the same 3 people. You have the same 2 stores. And it's just, I'm sorry. I'm just a city girl. That's what it is. I'm not judging anyone who likes the small town life, but I just could not do it. It was too much. I was just too used to living in the city. And I feel like they should really have it where, like, if you're from a certain place, just try to keep them in the place that they're from. Why move them around all these crazy different directions and places? And I know homes are scarce, but wow, because that's a big change for someone to have to take, and you're so young.
So the room that your little brother stayed in this foster home, it had antique dolls in it. Tell me about that.
The woman that in the foster home of the Williams family, she would collect dolls like Barbie dolls. And it was a lot of them. It was probably like over 100 dolls, a variation of sizes, variation of like what they look like, but it was so creepy. And my little brother, he had to sleep in there. Mind you, he's 10, like I was telling y'all earlier. He's 10 years old. So he's completely terrified of these dolls looking at him, 100 of them at night. He was scared and he didn't want to go to sleep. And he came out, I guess, and woke them up or had the light on. It was something because his room was right next to theirs. And the husband of the Williams family, he got mad and he pushed my brother on the bed and told him to go to sleep. Was very impatient with him and very rude. You're not supposed to push. How is that therapeutic? That's not therapeutic to be pushing somebody on the bed. That's traumatizing. He barely even knew him. We was only there for, mind y'all, I just said a month and a half. And this was probably like a week. So if you're only a weekend and you already getting tired, you shouldn't be no foster parent. I feel like people a lot of times ignore the kids can pick up on feelings. Like, yes, we're kids, we're young, and we haven't been on the world that long, but we can still feel feelings, and we still have a right to our feelings, and our feelings do matter. So yes, you pushing me on the bed, it's gonna make me upset. It's gonna affect my day. It's gonna affect my mood. I'm already going through a lot, and I'm scared. I need comfort right now, not for you to be getting mad at me. And that's what goes back to what I was saying. Like, if you know you're not ready for patience and kindness and to take your time, then do not become a foster parent. Don't do it. It's not for you. And I know people are gonna be like thinking like, you're in her house. She can have like what she wants out in her house. And I completely understand that. And honestly, I would respect that if you weren't dealing with kids and you made the decision to foster kids into your home. When you make the decision to foster kids in your home, you make the decision to make them feel comfortable. Quit making decisions to foster kids if you're not ready for all that comes with it. Because I completely understand you don't want things in your home, and that's completely okay. But if you know that and you know you're not comfortable with fully opening up your home for someone else's comfort, then do not accept foster kids. Save me a heartache and being mentally drained, from trying to, move, adjust in schools and feel comfortable because I'm going through a traumatic life experience, being moved from home to home, trying to find love. And just save you the struggle of being upset and just don't become a foster parent. It's just that simple.
So at this point, you've been in foster care for a little bit, at least over a month. So what did it start to mean to you? What changed now that you were in foster care? Was there anything that you were missing?
I can say that I could be more focused on school. I was eating way better. But at the same time, I felt like life wasn't normal because I knew at any moment of the instant I could be like taken out of that home and my life could change all over again. So at the same time, I was on edge because it's like I'm living life. Yes, I'm living, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, today the DCS worker could come today and say I have a permanent placement and I could leave, or that I need to be moved and I have to go, or my brother and sister could get in trouble and then we'll have to go. I just never knew what could happen. Anything could happen. Life was very unpredictable, and I was still lacking stability and the emotion that I had attached to, wanting to be with my real family and having to accept that life is not normal for me. Like, this is my normal to be living like this. So it was a mental adjustment that I had to make in the beginning.
Did you trust the Williams?
No, I did not. That was probably the beginning of when I started sleeping with one eye open. I didn't trust them people. My brother told me that someone pushed him, so I'm like, yeah, they could wake up in the middle of the night and try to do something to him, and I didn't feel comfortable there. They weren't welcoming. They were just nosing, all trying to figure out about my personal family business, which I feel like should be illegal. They don't have to know all that unless they're at risk. Why do they got to know all of our business so they can be talking about us and putting us down? And I've had more than one incident and occasion of living with foster parents where, I'm not trying to like be, like bash for anything, but like they ended up telling other people my personal business, and I just feel like that's inappropriate.
And at that age, it's got to be so awful for your self-esteem.
Yes. And that's so funny because my second respite home that I stayed in for the long stint, I was in school for a long time. But when I first got enrolled in school, my foster sister, the one they had adopted, I'm trying to put in my lunch pen. I don't know if everybody's familiar with like lunch pens, like you have to put them in to get your lunch. She literally blurts out in the lunch line because I'm having trouble with my number. And she's going to say, it's okay. She's a foster kid. She gets free lunch to everybody in the lunch line. I'm like, okay, this is very embarrassing. Like, you did not have to just tell everybody. And we living in a small town, so the school is smaller, like, and word gets around quick, like it's a lot of gossip. So she's just telling my business. I'm like, why is she telling the whole lunch line that I'm in foster care? I'm already up in here feeling embarrassed. I'm coming in here knowing that every day that life could be going crazy. And I'm up in here looking crazy too because I'm a foster kid. I'm getting what I can at this point, So I'm already feeling like confidence broken and like I'm down bad. Like, and you're going to come in here telling everybody I'm in foster care. That is just horrible.
Oh yeah, I know. And my last foster home was out in Collinwood, which is really, really small town. And there's one foster home. And so everybody knew that the other guy who was in foster care in our school, because there was only two, me and him, he was my brother. And he started introducing everyone as like, oh, that's my sister. And I was like, please stop. They're going to know I'm in foster care because I'm coming in the middle of the year, in the school year, right? That's sign number one. And then the only other person who's in foster care in this entire town, because it's so small, and now suddenly you got a sister that's 16 and nobody's ever heard of her. Yeah, okay, you're in foster care. Cool. If you would like to reach out, please send an email to xfostervoice@gmail.com. If you'd like a question to be answered on the show, or just want to voice your opinion, send a short video attached to your email. So, when you're in foster care, you're supposed to receive $1 a day as an allowance. What happened with that money in the Williams home?
Ms. Williams told them straight up. I had a male village worker that come to visit me every week. She told him straight up, she said, I'm going to be taking their $30. Said they will not be getting it, they will have to earn it. It's mandatory that we get our $30. It's like an allowance. And they're not supposed to withhold it. But he literally like listened to her say literally like they're not getting their money. And he just went along with it. I'm like, this is crazy. You're supposed to be the one advocating for me and you're just going to let her mistreat me? And I didn't even do anything. And even if I did, that's not the way to handle it because, like I said, you're supposed to be giving us the $30. It doesn't matter. They don't have nothing to do with it. Like, that's all that we get literally to spend and buy stuff with. And some of them won't even do your hair or get your hair done. So it's like that's what I'm using to maintain myself too. And even though you're supposed to be doing it, you're not doing it, which is wild. You're already getting paid. So why are you doing this? Why are you taking my money? It's just like that's betrayal. That's why the trust messed up. Boom. Seriously.
And $30 doesn't sound like a lot. But first of all, like you said, the parents are getting paid for what they do. They're getting paid a lot, hundreds of dollars already to have you. And when you're young like that, $30 is a lot. And most of the time when you're in foster care and you have that money, it's usually just for a bag of chips or something, or a special snack, or hair care, body care, soap, whatever you need, because sometimes your foster parents don't go out of their way to buy you the food that you like or the treats that you like. I think I've had 10 foster homes, and I've only had a single one that asked me, "Hey, what do you want on the shopping list?" And that was it. Like, that $30 was what got me what I wanted.
Wow. And I feel you, because when we lived with the Williams family, they were the same way. They would not buy us anything we wanted. We had to eat exactly what they cooked. If we didn't eat exactly what they cooked, go hungry. That's exactly what they said. They said, "You've been hungry before, you can be hungry again." I was like, wow. So now you're going to take advantage of a vulnerable situation I had. And I was like, this is why they should not be telling people our business, because some people are going to use this as ammo. And they were using it as full-fledged ammo. They were not holding anything back. They said, "You've been hungry before. You weren't really hungry then if you don't want to eat this." That's literally what they said. And not only that, the Williams family, the next day, like we went to their church, the husband of the family, he literally stood up and said, "Kids are so ungrateful. They don't want to eat oatmeal," because we told them we didn't want to eat their oatmeal that day because it was so nasty. And I love oatmeal, but it was disgusting. Like, it was bland. It didn't have any flavor. It was like slop. And I was like, "No, I'm sorry. Like, I really can't eat it." And I don't know if they just expect us to be ready, just eager to eat everything. We're kids. We're gonna be picky. And I still to this day feel like I wasn't being super picky. Like, I just didn't want to eat it. It was so nasty. And for him to stand up in the middle of the church and to be telling everybody our business like that was very uncalled for. Like, that's crazy. And that's feel like you're attacking some kids. Like, how big do you feel sitting around here 50 years old attacking some little kids? That is so horrible. They're already new in town. They already barely even had foster homes. They're still fresh to foster care. And you're going to stand up and attack them. That's just crazy.
Those comments are just so disgusting. And the information that they were getting was coming from your DCS worker and your foster care file that follows you home to home. It's not like you could have even prevented that by just being guarded. It's something that's given to foster parents as soon as you get in the door, and sometimes it can be a real challenge.
I completely agree.
Obviously, this home is not good, and you talked to your DCS worker about these issues you were experiencing. What was her reaction?
Well, when we finally did come back to Nashville, it was for our first court meeting from that permanent placement. They were setting up a perm plan. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's where they set up your permanency plan from here going out so they can see what your future will be in foster care, like whether you'll be adopted or whether they'll find you a temporary placement or whether you're going to go back with your family. So that's what the perm plan was. We was going to get it approved in front of the court. And we went there and we were literally telling the lady, our DCS worker, all that we've been going through, like basically what I was explaining about how they pushed my brother on the bed and how they were doing stuff to us. And we told her everything. And she was like, "It'll get better. It's okay. Y'all gonna go back. It's gonna be fine." Like, she completely disregarded everything that we said. I'm like, wow, so you're really not going to try to help me? You're really going to disregard everything that I have to say? This is horrible. Like, and that's when okay, I have no voice. I have no say. So my life is going to be thrown all apart. Really sunk in for me.
And your DCS worker is your first line of defense when it comes to foster care. Those are the people, like, if you're going to get removed from a home, they're the people who are going to do it.
Right. And mind you, I feel just like when you get released into youth villages, when your DCS worker signs you up for youth villages for like the therapeutic services, I guess that they claiming they offer, and all the things, the benefits, the perks that they say they offer, when they sign you up for youth villages, they just don't have to see you like every week anymore. They can do like 30 days because your youth village worker is supposed to be coming and checking on you. So we hadn't even seen her in a long time, like since she had dropped us off to Pulaski. So we hadn't seen her in a long time. So it's like when we did see her and we were telling her, it's like, wow, you really don't care. You just abandoned us, dropped us off, and you're never going to come back. And she did do that.
Speaking of that, how often did your DCS workers see you, considering she's supposed to see you every 30 days?
I would say once every 2 to 3 months. And that's what made life scarier, because I knew, like, if something did go down, it's not going to be good, because my DCS worker doesn't even come see me.
That is just such a risky situation, especially like she knows that like there's been an incident where like your foster parent put their hands on your little brother. That's already a big red flag, and then you're not going to check in every month. That's really dangerous.
Exactly. So it's like, you're abandoning me. I'm going through a lot, and you're not even listening to what I have to say when I do see you. How do you think that makes me feel? Then you're going up here in this permanency plan, telling them that these people are my permanent placement, and I'm not going to be going anywhere else. What? I'm going to have to stay with these people, and they're being violent. They're being very confrontational, passive aggressive. I can't live like this. This is not healthy.
When you were in that courthouse or after, and this reality is sort of setting in, or even looking back now, did you ever question why you were removed in the first place if the places they were putting you in were subpar and bad?
Yes, and that was the question I asked my GAL, my guardian ad litem, and then they introduced me to a caseworker, which is a court appointed advocate. I was asking them, like, we wanna live with the Ross family. I'm like, why can't we live with the Ross family? What's wrong with them? And they were like basically telling us, it's not a good fit. It's not going to be good in the long run. And I'm like not even understanding. But then by that point, I'm understanding, okay, it's a race issue. I'm like, okay, I understand what's going on, because just the way my DCS worker was talking, I could basically understand what she was trying to say by that point period of time. So I'm just like, okay, it's apparent what's going on here. And I was just like, this is really ridiculous. It doesn't matter.
So, toward the end of your stay with the Williams, you and your foster family took a car ride. What happened?
When we took the car ride, it was back home from the courthouse, the same day of the incident that I'm describing, of when I told my DCS worker about what was going on and they were setting up my permanency plan. Mr. Williams, he was driving the van that they had, and me, Miss Williams, and my sister, we were having a conversation about what had happened, and she was wanting to know more information, and I didn't want her knowing it, so my sister wasn't telling her. She was wanting to know about what happened, what my family members were saying, because I had my uncle, he was supposed to come to the court date or something. They was like she was wanting to know what he was saying, whether he was gonna get us back or whatever. And I'm like, why are you trying to be nosy? Why are you being all in our business? Why do you want to know so much about what's going on? That's not your business, and I don't feel comfortable sharing that with you. And you need to understand that's a boundary for me. Because she was already like going looking up my family members on Facebook, asking me what their names were. Like, why are you trying to look them up on Facebook and add them on Facebook? That is so weird. You're supposed to be caring for us, but instead you're trying to be nosy. Like, I just feel like that was a violation of privacy. And after that, I was like basically telling her, like, this is not your business. Like, why are you trying to ask my siblings what's going on? Like, that's inappropriate. And I was telling my brother and sister, if she asks you a question, do not answer it, because that's not her business. And if you don't feel comfortable answering it, you don't have to. And she basically was getting upset, and she was yelling at us in the car. And we got into a argument that almost turned physical, and Mr. Williams ended up wrecking the vehicle, rear-ending someone on the street.
The police were called afterwards, right?
Yes, the argument ensued, and it got worse. After that, she ended up calling the police because threats were made, and she just called the police, and they ended up showing up.
So, this is obviously a very tense and stressful situation. Youth Villages definitely got involved with it, and what happened afterwards?
Our youth village worker came to pick us up and dropped us off at our new respite home that same night, like in the middle of the night, probably like at 2 a.m. We were staying with a new family after that. They came and showed up. They was like, we don't want to have them anymore. And they came and picked us up, and they took us to our new foster home, probably like 40 minutes away from there in Columbia, Tennessee.
So, this foster home was obviously quite the train wreck. What do you think it needed?
They were not genuine people at all. They were just in it straight for the check, and you could totally tell. They were just trying to take our $30. They're trying to take everything. They were not in it for kids. They were in it for themselves.
So, what can people learn from your experience with the Williams?
Don't get into foster care if it's truly not your calling and you don't want to take your time and be patient with kids. If you don't really want to do it and that's not your true meaning and intention behind doing it, it's not going to work out anyways. Let it go, baby. Don't do it. Do it out of the kindness of your heart, not because you're trying to get money or because it's not going to get you rich and you're going to be, it's just not the right thing to do. It's about people who love kids. The experience is not going to be good.
So, from the Williams, you were placed with a respite while you waited for another family. Tell me a bit about what this respite, the Long family, looked like.
Well, they were older, like 80 years old. And they had 3 kids already, one that was younger, and he had a lot of mental health issues. And then an older one, she was in the same grade as me. She had a lot of mental health. They all did. They all had been through a lot, but they were adopted, all of them. But I was the oldest out of all of us. But it was a wild experience living with 3 adopted kids that they had, and then living with my 2 siblings and them. So it was wild, just all of us together. It was like living a different life.
So, what was this respite home like for you?
It was weird, but it was a time where I feel like I was going through a growth period in my age. I was turning from 15 to 16, so I was working, I was going to school, so I was doing good, and I was very focused, and I could just focus on my school somewhat because it was still stuff going on.
How long did you end up staying there?
Around 9 months. It was a long respite home. Like it was very long.
So, tell me a bit about how the Long family treated their adopted kids.
They were verbally and physically abusive. And they were trying to adopt us. I knew something was up because like the second day, probably like the third day, they called me and they were like, "Hey, if you want to get adopted, you can get adopted." And I'm like, "Wow, you barely even know me." I told them no. But I was like, let me see how they treat their adopted kids. After 2 months of living with a foster family, you get to see like the real behind them, the genuine of how they really are. Cause yeah, someone can put up a front for 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks, they're gonna get tired of putting up their front. So it's like they get to see the real you and you get to see the real them because y'all both have gotten comfortable. So it's like it took me a while just to adjust to see how they really were.
So, obviously, in foster care, when you're adopted, you usually don't re enter foster care.
Yes, but one of their kids actually re-entered foster care when we left. They reversed the adoption. Yes, she was a teenager and she made teenage decisions, but at the same time, you got to know how to support teenagers if you're going to have them living with you. And I feel like they didn't know how to really support her emotionally, and they put her down a lot. They really mistreated her. All of them, they really mistreated them. They didn't. They were 80. Like, how was an 80-year-old going to be having the patience and the time and even the know-how to parent some kids in around like 2018, 2019?
And their oldest was sent to a facility, correct? Like a residential.
Yes, after we left, she was sent to a residential facility.
This house was eventually infested with bed bugs, correct?
Yes, probably like I want to say around 7 months of us living there. I noticed that it was bugs that would be crawling on me and biting me. And at the time, I didn't know anything about bed bugs, nothing at all. But I was like, what is in this house? Like, what's going on for real? Like, cause it's like something in here biting us. And that's when one of their daughters came and was like, "It's bed bugs here. They're treating it." Cause she used to always know everything that would be going on. And she was the one who got sent to the facility. But she was like, they're treating it as bugs in here and this is going on. And I'm like, what? They got bugs up in this home and they got us up in here. This is ought to be illegal. I'm like, this is ridiculous. We had to stay at a hotel for like a week while they were treating this home. And even when we come back, it was still bed bugs and they were still treating it. I'm like, this is crazy. They should have removed us from this home and they still got us here. And I'm like, how do nobody know that these people got us foster kids living in a hotel? And me and my sister, we were sharing a bed, and I'm pretty sure that's against foster care regulations and rules.
You're not supposed to share a bed with somebody. I ended up needing a home in the month of November around 2018, and that's a really hard month to get placed because of Thanksgiving. Nobody wants to introduce new kids to their family, and just travel, things like that. People don't have the time or the availability to take on a new kid. And so I was bouncing house from house and they couldn't find me a place. So they just set me up on a couch with someone who had like three foster kids. It's it's something that happens a lot where like that bed rule where it's like you have to have a single bed and there can't be anyone else in it and it has to be a bed in a bedroom. That rule is broken all the time. It's unfortunate, but it is.
So this, because my little brother, he was sleeping on the couch, just like how you said you were. He was sleeping on the couch in their basement, not even in a bed.
And that's long term. I was at least only there for like a week. That's awful.
Yeah, it was horrible.
So my question, how long did you have to sleep in a house with bed bugs before they were all gone?
I believe until we left. When we received our Christmas gifts and we left that home literally like the 29th of December, I still remember to this day. Our Christmas gifts that they gave us on the 25th had dead bed bugs in them. It was dead bed bugs in the packaging.
Oh
It was dead
God.
bed bugs in the packaging of the stuff. It was crazy. It was just ridiculous.
How did this all affect you?
Well, like I said, I never dealt with bed bugs ever in my life, so I was paranoid. They would be in my nose. They would be on my clothes at school. I would feel one crawling on me. And I didn't even know that they can easily spread from you can give them to people at school. So I could have gave some to somebody in my school and not even knowing. That is just, oh my God, I would have felt horrible. It took down your self-esteem, your confidence, made you paranoid.
Let's talk about your siblings for a moment. How did having siblings in foster care affect you?
Well, being the oldest, it made me feel like I was their new mom. I already felt like I hadn't been a kid ever in my life. So now it's like I'm going in with my younger brother and sister. I have to protect them because not everybody's going to be nice. And if they do one thing wrong, we could be split up. One of us could be sent to another home. One could be sent to another home because we're already three siblings that most likely are not going to get placed because the larger the group, the less likely it is for a home to want to take you in because they don't have that many beds, like you were just saying. So I'm like, they already probably want to split us up so we can get placed easier. I don't want to do anything and I don't want you to do anything so you can get removed from this home because I want us all to be together.
So, in your sort of biological family, you have your two younger siblings, but you also had an older sister. Tell me about her.
Yes, my older sister, she was placed into care before we were. Probably like I want to say 6 months before we were, she was placed into care. So she was already used to like foster care, but we barely even seen her when we got after we got placed in foster care. We're all in foster care, but yeah, we're barely seeing our other sister. If it goes down and we get like separated, I know for sure I'm not gonna see you because I'm barely seeing her. So I'm like, we don't need to get split up. I'm telling him like you gotta be good, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you can't make them mad. I'm just trying to do too much that I shouldn't and worry about things that a kid should never have to worry about while they're going to school and just trying to live their life. Like it was just too much that I was having to go through mentally in that time.
Did they ever attempt to place you in the same home as your older sibling?
No.
So, when you were at the Longs, you started working. Tell me about that.
When I started working for the Longs, this was my first time ever having a job and I was 15. I was so persistent with the job. Like I really wanted the job bad so I could have a way to like buy the things that I wanted and things that I needed. And I would work like 3 to 2 days out of the week, but it would still be like a way of escape for me to feel like I'm a normal person, a normal teenager. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of community at the job that I worked at, and everyone was so nice and friendly. And I just really loved it. It just gave me a way to escape everything that I was going through at that time.
So, your foster parents were supposed to be receiving hundreds of dollars from, either the state or youth villages for to take care of you. Did you ever see any of that money, like in clothes, food, the things you need, or were you providing for yourself mostly?
When I lived with the Longs, we hardly ate at home. They always would buy us food out, and it actually took a toll on my health. I gained like 80 pounds. So we went out to eat a lot. And they frequently bought me clothes. But the one thing that I can say is the $30 allowance that I was supposed to be receiving, instead of giving it to me, they took it for gas money to pay for taking me to work. And my DCS worker even called Miss Long out on that and was like, hey, you're not supposed to be taking that money, that you're just supposed to do that. And she was like, well, she told me to do it, which is not true. I didn't tell her to do that. But that's what ended up happening with that situation. It was really wild because I'm like, yeah, I'm still supposed to be getting my $30 just because I'm working doesn't mean I don't receive what's entitled to me.
So eventually you were moved into a second permanent foster home with the Trent family. What was that like?
That was my best placement of them all. They were very sweet and nice, and there was shaped and molded me to be the person who I am today. But at the same time, like I'm saying, like it still was an adjustment period, a lot to get used to, and it takes a long time to feel people out. But we stayed with them the longest out of any foster parent.
So what did this household look like? Who lived in the home with you?
So it was Mr. Trent, Mrs. Trent, and then they had a younger son who was around 4 years old.
What strategies did they use to help you?
Mrs. Trent, we used to go to therapy together. Like we had therapy sessions together, and they really tried to implement a lot of the things that they said. They actually tried. I could tell that it was effort on their part. So things were definitely better there. And I knew that it wasn't just for a check, but why they wanted to have foster kids. I knew they really loved people genuinely. I knew it wasn't fake.
So eventually down the line, your foster dad taught you how to drive. Tell me why this is important.
Yes. And no, and let me just say this. No foster parent really is gonna be teaching no kids how to drive. So this was definitely made him a top tier foster dad. So most of the time when you're in care, you're not going to get taught how to drive. You're not going to get a driving license, and you're definitely not going to get a car. Like, because they're already policing you, like basically trying to make sure you don't run away. They're trying to make sure someone is accountable for you. And for you to get even a permit, you have to have someone sign and say that they're your legal guardian. And most foster parents don't want to do that. But they signed me up for driving school during the summertime. For a month, they drove all the way from Hermitage to Franklin, I think that, or was it Brentwood? I think it was Franklin. And then he took me to drive around a school when it was closed, and literally took his time every day and taught me how to drive until I learned how to drive. And my brother, he's like 4 years older than me. He never got taught how to drive, and he's like 25. And he never got taught how to drive. So this was big for me because a lot of like foster kids don't get taught how to drive just based off the fact that no one is going to take ownership of you. And no one even really probably even want a foster kid to know how to drive because they don't want them to probably run away or something. It's just crazy. But yes, it was definitely an advantage for me because when I aged out, I knew how to drive. I had my license and I had experience using a car. So it made life much easier for me being an adult.
Yeah, and when we first met and were originally talking, that was something that was so shocking to me because I was never taught how to drive because I was living in a group home. And so when I aged out, I had one of my 18-year-old friends who was technically like a couple months younger than me start teaching me how to drive. And I'm still like learning from people who are either my age or younger. And that's kind of how it went. Like I did also go to driving school, and it was very much like, okay, I got to learn from whoever I can and see if they'll let me borrow their car. And it's very difficult to find a job if you can't drive, and you certainly can't get a car if you can't drive. So it's like you have all these barriers on top of the other barriers in foster care. But what you were saying is 100%, it's something I haven't considered before, but it's very correct. Nobody wants to, have teach a kid how to drive, and then that kid uses that skill to do something bad. Even if it's not going to happen, it's something that foster parents are definitely considering and thinking.
Definitely. And not only that, no one wants to take ownership and be like, okay, if something goes down, I'm going to be the one held responsible. No one is going to want to be like, I'm their guardian. I'm going to be the one responsible if you do something wrong. Because by law, a minor is under their parents' care. So if they do something, then you're responsible for it. So they're not wanting to take that legal ownership and saying, okay, if something goes down, then I'm the one responsible, which is understandable. I completely understand foster parents who don't want to do that because not everyone is going to be okay with that. But at the same time, I feel like they should have someone, teaching foster kids how to drive, because when they age out, it's a little likely chance that they'll ever get to learn, or it'll take a long time before they get to learn that skill because there's so many hoops you have to jump through just to even get your driving license.
There's so many hoops. I'm lucky that I had a friend and a couple friends who have like actually taken me aside and been like, I'm going to just give you like a basic crash course in driving. We're going to take you out and do driving stuff. But I'm 21 and I still have a pretty I'm okay at driving, but I'm not the best. And but it like 21 is not a time that you would usually expect someone to not have like a ton of experience driving, and that can be really like you need to drive to get to your job most of the time. So it can be very hard.
Definitely get to your job, your schools, your doctor's appointments, all those things that you need to know how to drive to get there. And the bus, after a while, it's like, okay, this is stressful. This is causing more stress than it is, happiness. It's better to, be able to get up and go. I don't have to plan so many things around this. And what if you have kids? And it takes the complication out of a lot of things to have a car.
And not every place has somewhere that like a bus. Nashville has buses, and sometimes they run into Murfreesboro. I've seen them 3 or 4 times, but usually you don't really get that many buses.
Right, you made a very good point. Not every place even has metro transit. So that's crazy. Yeah. Not every place has transit, public transit. And actually that's one of the things that I realized when I got shipped to Pulaski.
Yeah, I can't just hop on a bus in a small town. But yeah, it's really a big issue, and I feel like it's not talked about a lot. You have these people who are turning 18 and they need food, they need support, assistance, they need to go to doctor's appointments like you said, and they have absolutely no way to get there because they can't drive.
It also was like, man, I'm looking at other kids in my grade that know how to drive. I want to know how to drive. I know, like, at that age, everybody's like, my mom and my dad getting me a car. I know how to drive. So it's like, it take away from the teenage experience too, and the feeling like you have a regular life. It's like you're so restricted. So it's like almost like you're not living the life that you should be. Like, I'm a teenager. I should be able to enjoy the life of a teenager. That's teenage life.
Yeah, there's so many experiences that you miss out on when you're in foster care, and one of those things is, oh, I'm gonna, take my friends out driving to get some Sonic. Like you never get that if you're in foster care. And then when you're older, right, when you're 18, 19, you probably don't know how to drive. And if you do, you probably don't have a car. And so there's that aspect of not only do I not like miss out on these things I really need to do, like a job possibly, I'm missing out on the fun stuff of going and driving and picking my friends up and going to town or doing fun stuff, the museum. You miss out on things.
Yes, and I can say my time with the Trent family, they really made sure that I would always, even when I didn't have a car, they made sure I would always go to like social events in school or with my friends. And that's why I say they made me feel the most like a teenager more than any other family, because they were okay with letting me do those teenage activities. Mind you, I was with the Long family, 80 years old. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have access to technology. They're not taking my personal social needs serious. They're old school. So it was very refreshing to be with the Trent family, to be able to experience, life less reserved and, less not like today's world. Because I feel like that's going to give you like a big social shock, because today technology is so used and socializing for teenagers is very important. So I just feel like it took away from my life as a teenager. I feel more like a old woman. I'm going to school, work, home, and that's it. No interaction with my friends. It's like, man, teenagers don't live like this. And it made me feel more like, I'm in foster care. It was a constant reminder to have that.
What should foster parents take away from your experience?
To offer more support to teenagers that are working, because it's hard to work and be in school at the same time. And I feel like to, lessen the load that they have, like don't pressure them with financial stuff. Like, I shouldn't have to pay for gas to go to work and you're already getting money for me to provide those types of things for me. So maybe just thinking of new ways to relieve more pressure off of the child instead of, adding more.
So kind of going off of that question, was there anything physically or emotionally or psychologically that you weren't receiving in foster care?
Yes, I didn't receive the proper emotional and social support I should have, because I couldn't communicate with any of my friends. I didn't have a social life outside of school and work. So it just made my life very dull. And it didn't feel like I was a teenager. It felt like I was an old person. I went to church, home, and school. So it's like I don't have any, social life with my students, the students in my school and my peers. So it just took a toll on me. And even today, like the way that I communicate with other people, it's like I have social anxiety. And due to the lack of technology that I had while living there for almost a year, it set me back technology wise and knowing how to use computers and phones. So even like now when I'm working, it's like I have to learn how to use a program or something that I could have learned when I was in high school, but I was just set back on it because I wasn't able to access technology living with them.
What reforms should youth villages consider?
I say they should consider the age of the foster parents. Like after a certain age, it should be a cutoff. And I only say this because some things that like older people do would not be fitting for a child in 2023. And that's the case in when I was living with the Longs. It was like they were 80, and it's like a lot of the things that they did when they were kids, it's not that we don't live in that same world anymore. The world is completely different, and the support that they would need back in their day has dramatically changed from the support that I would need today in 2019 or 2018. And I also feel like the technology rules should be different. If you don't have any risk, you're not a flight risk or anything, I feel like everyone should be entitled to technology because I feel like it's something that's only holding us back. Technology plays a big part of the world that we live in today, so it should definitely be incorporated into the teenagers and even the kids' lives just so they can feel normal and just feel like a part of society.
That actually segues really nicely into my next question, which is how can foster parents promote normalcy in the life of a teenager?
I say let them have a social life. Let them work. Don't put any pressure on them that shouldn't be on them. Don't worry them with things that are going on in the foster care. Where like give them their $30. I mean, if that's their money, give it to them, and try to make things as normal as possible for them. Like, don't constantly remind them you're a foster kid, because that's what they're trying to get away from. Let them have technology. Them just try to incorporate anything that a normal teenager would do. If a normal teenager would do it, hey, put it in their life because that's all that they want is normalcy. That's what I wanted so bad, to feel like I wasn't just an outcast. Because it's like, yeah, I'm walking around and I'm going to school, but I have this constant reminder in the back of my head, like, hey, I'm a foster kid. I'm going to go home to a family that's not really my family. I'm going to feel left out. I'm going to feel like I don't belong. And I'm going to not have anyone to talk to when I get there. So it's like, try to make them feel comfortable, talk to them, bond with them. Just trying to make them feel normal. Another thing that would be like very socially awkward is if you would see someone at your school and then you will go to like a youth villages meeting where they're having like a parent training and they have all the kids together too. Oh my God. It's like, okay, I just seen you at school, but we're both foster kids and we don't even want to talk to each other because it's so awkward.
I remember going to the office in Nashville. There's 3 group homes, and one of them I was in. And so every like couple months or so, they'd get all of the kids together in the office. It was really awkward because the other 2 group homes were for boys, and the staff were really weird. Like they were like, "Oh, you can like talk to them and stuff, but don't talk to them for too long because they're boys, and we can't trust you guys to be normal."
That makes you feel more not normal that you just treating us like that. It's so weird. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. I know you never lived in a group home, but that is how they are. They are very much like no boys, no girls. Like, don't even think of them. It's completely abnormal for teenagers to think about the opposite sex. That's so out of control and so weird. You must have 14 mental disabilities. Holy shit.
No, seriously. And them saying that, it makes you just more so want to do it. I don't think people realize of like reverse psychology.
So something interesting between us is aging out or turning 18 and leaving the foster system. I aged out on May 21st, so I had already graduated high school. You, on the other hand, turned 18 in the middle of your last year of high school. I'm really curious to know how that affected you in your schooling.
By that time, I was just ready to not be a part of the system anymore. And I feel like I really shouldn't have left my foster home when I did, but I was just so tired of other people being in control of my life my whole life. So I was just ready to take control. Little did I know I really wasn't ready for that. But when I aged out and went to independent living, it was a whirlwind. It was like the first week was like a shocker to me, like how life really was, just being on your own. And I had to really like get in my mental mindset, like, hey, you have to move a certain way or otherwise you will not be successful. I knew I wanted to graduate high school. I knew I wanted to go to college. So it's like I had to lock in with myself, like this is what needs to be done so you can be successful. And it was so scary. And it's like, even though like you have like your caseworker and your therapist, it's like nothing that they can say or do is going to prepare you for being out in the real world. So it was just a lot to deal with, a lot of emotions that I had to process over the months. I probably didn't get used to like living on my own to probably like 6 months after aging out of care.
Yeah, so independent living, it's basically where you can go when you turn 18 if you want to or don't have another place to go. It's sort of like this big apartment with a bunch of people who have aged out of foster care. You all have staff and counselors to help you, and yeah, you all basically just live there and learn how to learn different life skills. The one that you went to is Monroe Harding, which is in Nashville. Tell me a bit about how Monroe Harding works and operates for someone who's never been to independent living.
When I went into Monroe Harding, it was easier for me because I had already been in Youth Connection for years, so I already knew like most of the staff. And that the staff is very supportive. Like they check on you, they have security, like you're gonna feel safe, but you're also gonna have like roommates. So you have your roommates, and you don't know if you're gonna be getting along with them. You don't know how the dynamic with that is gonna be. But I feel like everything is really good, but I feel like you never know like who your roommate is gonna be and like what they're gonna be into. So that's the only part I could say I was really worried about. But I do like the support, and I like, like that they try to make you feel special. Like on holidays, they'll come and bring you something for like the holiday, and then for your birthday, they try to make you feel like, you're not alone. You have people to come and talk to, you have people to reach out to, you have resources. And even after leaving independent living, I still, I'm still plugged in with Monroe Harding because they have so many resources that can help young people.
So you mentioned youth connections. Kind of talk a bit about that.
Yes, youth connections. I feel like the best way I can describe it is like training, education, and empowerment. They prepare you. If you're enrolled in youth connections, they prepare you. You can be enrolled, I think, at the age of 16. I came in at 16. And they prepare you and teach you a lot of things that you will need to know about the real world. Things that your foster parent is really not going to teach you. So I feel like that really prepared me very well, like for like filling out like college applications, filling out housing applications and things like that. Things that like your foster parents wouldn't really have time to, teach you. I just feel like it teaches you so much. And not only that, like it's community. It's a place you can go and you like can see people that are, foster kids too, aged out of care too, or still in care. And you can just be like, okay, we can relate to one another. Because sometimes it can be scary, like being out in the world and you can't see anyone that's successful that's like you, or see anyone that's making it that's like you. And I feel like it also gives you hope to know, okay, I can do this. When I was 16 and I was going to Youth Connections, seeing like other people who are aged out of care, like in college and doing well and, advancing with their life, it gave me encouragement. And it made me feel like, okay, I can do this too. And it also gave me like people to talk to that have been through things that I've been through too. Like, I know that I'm not out here alone. I know that it's support out here. And it just was very encouraging.
Youth Connections physically is this place in downtown Nashville, and they host all sorts of programs and services out of it, right? They have Works Wonders, which is basically for job training, education, all of that, and they kind of help you with job interviews and visits to industry sites. They also have She, which is a sexual health education group for anyone who's a woman. They have Opportunity Passports, which helps people save money, and they help eventually, once you're done with Opportunity Passport and you've gone to all the lessons, they help you get like a car or pay for school or medical bills. It's really helpful for sure. And we're both in it. It's really cool. And yeah, like you said, you get to see a lot of people climbing up and doing things and going to school and getting jobs, and it encourages you. Because when you're in foster care, it's usually just you and maybe your siblings, and you don't have those role models that have actually gone out of care and gone on to do great things. And so you all get together for Youth Connections and live in Monroe Harding possibly, and then get to see each other do great things. What did Monroe Harding help you with?
For one, they helped me finish my high school out because I could contact someone and, be like, I need help with this. They provided me housing so I could finish my high school. And then when I graduated from high school, I got support from the education staff to start college. I was having trouble like finding a job. I had got more education provided through Mama Harding. They paid for me to be able to get my legal assisting certificate. When I had got my paralegal certificate, like I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any experience, so it was so hard for me to be able to even go out and get a job. And it's like they helped me. They helped me, find out what my next steps were going to be. They helped me develop my resume. They helped me develop my portfolio. And, like no one is going to really help you do that. Like, and it's just still special to me to this day. And I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today without them. And so I'm forever grateful. And they just provide me just so much support. Like if I need something, I know I can reach out and they'll plug me in with, if they don't have it, they'll plug me in with another resource that does have it. And it just feels so good to know that I could like have someone to lean and fall back on, like if something goes wrong, because I really don't have family or support. So it's like I look at Mama Harding as my family, as my support, as my community, as people that I can come and reach out to and just tell them like, hey, I'm going through a tough time right now. That's so important.
Tell me why you decided to pursue a career in law.
What made me want to be in the legal system is just going to court as a child and seeing like how the legal system is, and having my belief just in the justice system and how things could work, if the right people were in the right positions. And it just inspired me to be able to have an impact on other people in their lives and to be able to show them that, hey, it is some good in the justice system and it is ways that we can use this to our advantage. So it just inspired me to be able to, like have an impact, to be able to explain things to other people who don't understand about the legal system, and to just be able to put in that work myself and not through other people.
Is there anything else you want to add or that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
It's okay if you're not wanting to put in the work or do a work for foster kids. That's fine. But I feel like it's very important as a foster parent and as someone that's trying to work with foster kids or kids aging out, for you to realize, I'm not ready to put in this work and I'm not ready to do what it has to offer. Because I feel like a lot of foster parents and a lot of people that are doing the work, like DCS workers, they're not really passionate about it. They're just doing it, just to do it. Like it's not something that they're really passionate about. So do not get into, foster kids or, like DCS work or casework if that's not really what you're passionate about, because foster kids can tell. We know when it's not real, and we know when it's not genuine. We know when you're not being, you, and you're not being authentic. And that's okay, because someone else is going to, want to put in their work, and they're going to want to be with foster kids, and they're going to want to help them. But I feel like know your calling and know what you're, sent out to be. Don't just try to be something just because you feel like, hey, this is going to get me to the next step. This is a career that I can use to make money. Like, no, don't do that. Do it because you really care about it, and do it because it's really in your heart.
So, for community members who aren't at all involved with foster care, how can they support people who are aging out and becoming adults after foster care?
I say they could give to Mama Harding or other organizations that are, lined up to help foster kids. And if you can't give, at least volunteer or offer your time, because it might not always be, a monetary thing that you can give, but sometimes it's time. Like for Youth Connections, they used to have people just come talk and come educate. Maybe you have something that you can come talk and educate us about. Maybe you have something that you could come help and, organize, or, something to just give back to organizations who are already, in the position to help us. And that'll just go a long way right there.
So, your time in foster care, how does it shape your parenting now with your 2 twins and your 2-year-old son?
Well, I can say for sure, living with all those different foster parents helped me get a good idea of how I want to parent my kids. The family that had the most impact on me was the Trent family. Just seeing the way that they parent and the way that they treat their kids, it helped me really get a good idea of how I wanted to treat my kids and the values that are important to me. And it helped me realize what kids actually need, and what I just feel like it really gave me perspective on what to do and what not to do, and what I was comfortable with and what I'm not comfortable with. Because before entering foster care, my idea of parenting would not be what it is today. I didn't have a good outlook and see a good example of really how to treat kids. So I just feel like it really gave me perspective on, like this is how I want to parent, and this is what I know I can do so my kids can flourish. So I'm really grateful for, some of my foster families, because it really gave me, like a outlook on life and how I want my life to be and how I want my kids' life to be and what I can do to benefit their lives. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today, Heaven. Your story really shows what people can accomplish when they age out of foster care.
Yes, I was so excited to age out of foster care, and I'm so excited of all the things that I've got to accomplish after exiting care. And I just want everyone to know, like, after you exit care, there is life after that.